Yeah.
What's your philosophy on practicing scripts? Like practice every day, like chant a lot, like write it out a lot, like role play a lot. What's your like?
Yeah, so there's a hierarchy of learning. At the bottom of the hierarchy of learning is reading and writing, which is the lowest form of learning, right? Which is interesting because that's how we get our formal education. As you go up the hierarchy of learning, the second highest form of learning is simulation, which is where you pretend to do the real thing. So doctors simulate on cadavers, pilots simulate in a device actually called a simulator before we let them on a real plane with people. And then the highest form of learning is doing the real thing, right? So if you want to ramp up the learning curve, then you do all of them every day. So you read, write, simulate, do the real thing. Read, write, role play, do the real thing. Read, write, role play, do the real thing. Read, write, role play, do the real thing, right? Because repetition is the mother of learning and the father of action, which makes it the architect of accomplishment. So that's how you can get it to be ingrained where you don't have to think about it anymore. You know what I'm saying? That's why when you hear me and Jose on like, you know, Clubhouse or whatever, I don't have to think about what to say anymore because I've spent a nauseating amount of time practicing it. Now I can focus on you, I can focus on facial expressions, I can focus on your tonality, I can focus on, right, other things. I already know what you're going to say before you even say it, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So I would do all of those, and what I did is, that's what I did. So I read, wrote, role played twice a day. Like I practiced role play twice a day, 6 days a week. I did that for 3 years, and I would chant scripts and I would hand write out the listing presentation. But I did that every day, and I would prospect.
So your time spent on skill development or scripts is like what, like you're spending like close to 2 to 3 hours?
It was like 2 hours probably every day, but it was a nauseating amount of time. But that's why, bro. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let's say you only practice 30 minutes versus 2 hours, bro.
Yeah, and then
in a month, a year.
Yeah, and then those people doing 30 minutes, they think they're the shit. And I'm like, okay.
And how did you develop? Like, obviously, I'm assuming you're writing out like the old scripts, right?
Yep.
And then how did you develop your
kind of flavor?
Yeah, your flavor, because I know you say a lot. You know, there's a couple of phrases that you use a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's from doing the real thing. So I would just do the real thing, and, you know, I would, I don't know, say something.
And then be like, oh, that worked.
That worked. That was
Let me try that again.
Let me try that again. And then I also, remember, because I was role-playing with, like,
badass agents.
Badasses, you know what I mean? Like, people, when I started role-playing with Neil, I was doing 50 deals. He was doing 200.
Yeah.
So I would role-play with, yeah, he had his own flavor. So I would role-play with people that were, like, just playing at really high levels, and I'd learn stuff from them. So it's like a combination of, you know, me coming up with stuff and just kind of taking stuff from other people that I would hear and be like, oh, that was really good. Oh, that works in that particular dynamic.
Do you believe each presentation should be like have its own flavor, or should it be like just like a legitimately can sort of thing? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think it should be structured for sure. Yeah, like winging it is for chumps, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like kind of asking a professional football team, like, do you think you guys should run plays?
Right. I guess I don't mean like legitimately can, but like, should it be like this portion we're gonna do this, and sometimes I say different things here.
No, we do the same thing every time.
Like, been around guys that kind of like they like this portion.
I get it. And how many homes do they list? It's when the conversation stops. You know, I hear people like, oh, well, you know, your shit's wordy. I'm like, yeah, how many homes do you list a year?
Yeah.
Fucking 20? Like, good, okay.
Yeah. No, makes sense, man. Makes sense.
In South Florida, in our MLS system, I was the top listing agent in the whole MLS system. So it's like out of 20,000 agents. You know, when people are like, oh yeah, I want to do it this way. I'm like, okay, well, do whatever the fuck you want, man. But here's what I know is true, is that if you want to do it in high volume, it's got to be systematized, right? So I think that there's a novel component as far as like the people, as far as perhaps the experience.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? While I'm with them, because I'll be present with them and, you know, kind of address whatever's coming up for them. But the process that we're following is the same every single time.
Like, so for example, what he's trying to say is that they're like, my husband just died. He's not going to say,
fantastic.
Fantastic.
Right.
I wrote down 3 real important questions. For
Right.
you.
Yeah.
Right, but that's how a lot of people do it.
I felt so, I literally never asked. I got 3 really important questions. Never say that shit. Because I feel so uncomfortable, because if somebody asks me that type of shit, like...
Yeah, but then you can say it in a different way. It's like, so before we get started, I just have a couple of questions to ask you, just to make sure that I'm fully prepared and I can provide you, you know, with the most accurate information and be of the best assistance to you. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
It's just a different approach.
But we were taught a different way. Right?
I know.
So that's why I'm saying those things, and what I'm saying is not in alignment with what the person is reflect, like what they want. You know?
Yeah, or what's true for them in that moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, but I can still follow a process.
Yeah.
I think just the process that you were following previously was very abrasive, because the person that's teaching it to you is very abrasive and very kind of gruff and blunt and direct. And, you know,
If you like it, great.
if you like it, great. If you don't, fuck you. Like, that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
But what happens is like, you know, instead of learning new things, what people do is they get prideful about the stuff that they already know. And that's dumb. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like doing it, like, you know, that's not really an environment for growth.
Right.
Where it's like, if you want to grow, it's like, I'm trying to figure out all different ways to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That was my problem. That was my problem with the presentation. I didn't.
Yeah, and then
I asked these
the
questions.
reserves out.
Right.
And you pick those up as well.
4, you know.
Right.
Do you, I know you're probably gonna go over this tomorrow.
Yeah. So
but
just whatever was on the note on that.
do you
checklist,
ask like the whole like
just that stuff?
here's what's gonna happen tonight sort of thing,
What?
Yeah, I would just say like,
some sort of thing?
yeah, well, you know, the great news is at the culmination of our time together, there are a few potential outcomes. The first, which we seem to be moving in that direction, is that you may decide to list a home with me. And again, I'm very excited to have that opportunity. Myself and team and staff, everybody standing at the ready to go to work for you ASAP. The second potential outcome, and this one's okay too, you know, there's an outside chance for whatever reason, maybe price, maybe commission, you may decide not to list a home with me, and that's perfectly fine as well. And the third, and this was just as important as the others, Mark, is if for any reason at all, if I honestly truly felt that I would not be able to help you get what you wanted at the time you wanted, I may decide to humbly decline the opportunity to list your home. The reason I would do that is I'd much rather earn your business with integrity, being honest and straightforward about what's reasonable and realistic, versus promising you something I know is not going to happen and not be able to deliver. And any one of those 3 I feel totally comfortable with. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
It's the same thing.
So you see the backbone, but the approach is a little different.
Yeah, the approach was it.
Instead of like, I may decide not to take your listing, which is like, what?
Yeah, you're like, why would you even say that shit?
Yeah.
Like, I really, like, honestly, like the way that whole presentation is, if someone said those sorts of things to me, too confident. Like, I'm like,
in, but just make sure.
I used to be on the phone like, you don't want to sell your house? Like, oh, like we have the best marketing, we're the #1 office. I used to say stuff like that, and
You
know,
know, I
results.
appreciate you, man. Thank you
Right.
so much.
for so long, yeah. And,
It's just the approach is a little different.
yeah, like even my broker Joe, like I love Joe, right? Jose, he's great, but don't record that.
You want me to cut?
No, don't just take Joe's name. Anyways, but they always use we're the #1 Century 21. That's why you should list with them. And what the hell does that have to do with what you're gonna do to sell the house, you know? And that sort of approach is kind of like how Mike Ferry does it, like, you know. And it was just hard for me to connect like that, so I would just say other things and wasn't getting the results I wanted. My presentation was all over the place, though.
But were you practicing every day?
I was, but I wasn't saying that because I just felt uncomfortable saying like, I got Jose. So I'd like to take before we get started. I'd like to take a look around the house. No, let me show you around. All right, fucking, you know, show me around. What someone else's house? I'm not gonna tell them like, let me show you let me walk around your house, you know. And then from there, it just kept going down, you know, or the prequel.
Would you ever allow them to take a tour? You take it, and then give you a tour of the property?
No, so when I would walk in, I'd be like, all right, do you want me to take my shoes off? And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, or yes, whatever they said. Okay, great. So what I'd like to do is just take a quick look around the property. Would that be okay? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. And then I'd just start, and I would stop. But when I stopped, I would say like, okay, and I'm noticing that the home is really tastefully furnished. So
Would they walk around with you?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm fine with that. Instead of you being like, no, you need to sit here. I need to look at it through the eyes of the buyer. It's like,
So you're saying it's okay to walk around with?
of course it is, bro. And when they walk around with me, I'm like, they're going to talk to me about shit. But it gives me an opportunity to start to assumptively close. So when they're walking around with me, I'm like, hey, Mario, I'm noticing that your home is really tastefully furnished. So when we have offers come in, are we going to be including the contents, or do you want to take that with you to your next destination?
Mm.
When who has offers that come in?
We have offers.
That's right. And then as you're showing me around, you're showing me all your shit, I'm like, okay. And if I remember correctly, Mario, you don't plan on making any changes or modifications before I start to bring buyers through. You just want me to help you to sell it as it is, where it is. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
You see what just happened again?
Yeah, you're already selling. We guys are already working together in hypothetical.
Right. I'm assumptively closing while you're walking around with me.
I talked to 7,000 people this year. I got 142 to say yes. We get about 27,550 days on planet Earth. That's the average. That's about 75 years in the industrialized world. Women have a tendency a little bit more than men. I'm 42, so I've used over half. Whatever's left, I'm going to sleep through a third of it. If I'm going to spend some of my time, I want to make sure that I'm stacking it on top of an activity that compounds and is leveraged. Because 90%, hear me, 90% of everybody who owns a home right now and has a mortgage that's less than 6%. Because what we do does not change. How much of it we do and how we do it is what changes based on market dynamics. 80% of the people who get a license are doing something else within a year. It's your job as a salesperson is to be in the presence of prospects. If you know how to sell, you will be disproportionately rewarded for your efforts. Like, you can literally make millions of dollars a year selling real estate. You could sell as much as you want.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Look and 7 Coaches and Mentors, where we bring you some of the best in the industry that share with you some of the tips and strategies so that you can implement in your business right now. Now, with that being said, today's guest, we're going to share with you exactly what you need to be doing right now as the market is changing. There's a lot of uncertainties, and perhaps a lot of you are wondering what to even focus on. So with that being said, I want to welcome Aaron Novello. So welcome, Aaron.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, so for everyone that's watching that maybe is not familiar with you, can you share with us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I've been in the real estate industry since 2006. My first calendar year, I made $13,000. Not something people would bring you on the Coaches and Mentors podcast to talk about. And it's because I had an inaccurate assessment of reality. I had a lot of people that were telling me things like wear my name tag at the grocery store and smile at people or sit in open houses. And it wasn't until I got an accurate assessment of reality and realized what this game actually is, which is a direct, hardcore sales business. And it allowed me to focus my energy once I got that accurate assessment in places that actually, would pay off, like role playing and practicing, like prospecting. And once I got that accurate assessment next calendar year, I did 17 transactions, then 50, then 79, then 89, then 100, did over 100 a year for 10 years in a row, did 200 deals a year twice.
That's awesome. So obviously, a lot of the agents that come to us that are probably watching this might be at a place where they are looking to transition from perhaps working with buyers to now they want to focus on listings, or they want more consistent business pretty much. Yeah. So for you, what was a turning point? I know that you went from, doing a very small amount in the beginning, and then you kind of were able to figure out what you needed to focus on. So what would be some of the things that you would say to those agents?
Yeah. So the first thing is that the money's not in the service, it's in the selling of the service. So in other words, people expect good service. They expect you to understand how to read contracts. They expect you to how to negotiate. It's kind of like the way I describe it to people. When you go to Whole Foods, like, you don't jump up and down because they have groceries. You expect that, right? But the money's not there. The money is learning how to sell the service. So if I'm giving a talk and there's, 500 agents in the room, I say, hey, we all have the same kind of license that allows us to perform the same service? The answer is yes. The question is, do we all make the same amount of money? The answer is no. And the question is why? Some of us know how to sell the service better than others. So if I'm going to use my time, which we get about 27,550 days on planet Earth, that's the average. That's about 75 years in the industrialized world. Women have a tendency a little bit more than men. I'm 42, so I've used over half. Whatever's left, I'm going to sleep through a third of it. So that whole exercise is just to demonstrate there's not that much time. So if I'm going to spend some of my time, I want to make sure that I'm stacking it on top of an activity that compounds and is leveraged, right? And in our game, learning how to sell, learning how to have sales conversations, prospecting, and taking someone that you don't know and then, you know, them deciding that they want to sit down with you and have a conversation, you pre-qualify that, handle objections, get a contract signed. That is a skill that is worth stacking your time on top of. So at the beginning of my career, I didn't know that. Once I got that accurate assessment, though, what I did is I spent, I role played twice a day, 6 days a week for 3 years in a row, because I recognize that there's no security in this business. There's only opportunities. So if I can get my skill set to such a degree that if there is an opportunity, I'll be able to execute on it, I've just created security for myself and my family. Yes. So that's the first thing that I would say. And what I would propose is when a marketplace is great, it masks incompetency. And I mean that lovingly. Like in a previous market, you could be a rum-dum, show up in flip-flops and make 100 grand. That is no longer the case. Like you have to be very skilled. The last time we had 4 million transactions in the United States, which is what we're projected to have from 6 million, was in 2009. And we only had 990,000 agents. We have like 1.6 million agents. So this is like the Hunger Games of real estate. And when the tide goes out, you could see who's wearing pants or not. So for people that aren't skilled and don't know how to sell, it's a rude kind of harsh awakening. But if you want to ramp up that learning curve, I would propose spending lots of time in role playing and practicing to learn the actual conversation, so that way you can convert opportunities into contracts being signed.
Absolutely. And I feel that that is something that agents should be doing, whether it's now or 2, 5 years ago. But for you specifically, what are you teaching your agents now that you weren't maybe covering so much 2 years ago?
Yeah, so it's dealing with a shortage of inventory. Because the truth is 90%, hear me, 90% of everybody who owns a home right now and has a mortgage that's less than 6%. 60% have mortgages that are less than 4%. So I'm aware, like people listening to this will shop on Amazon for 3 hours to save $20. And you get all mad because like somebody doesn't want to sell their home and trade a 4% rate for an 8% rate. It's like, of course they don't want to do that. So the only people that are going to actually do something right now are people that have to. So those would be life events like death, divorce, job relocation, moving to assisted living facilities, things of that nature. So what I'm laying out is a comprehensive, intentional plan to actually deal with a shortage of inventory. You need to give me tactical information that I can use to actually deal with the marketplace, right? Because our ability to deal with reality is directly correlated with getting what we want, period. So here's how we're sharing with them to deal with reality. The first is having a niche of some sort, because the riches are in the niches. So for me in Florida, we have the largest elderly population in the country. 50% of our business was probate in estates. It's market resistant. 65% of those homes are free and clear. And if they do want to sell, very highly motivated. Now, across the country, that is still the case. It may not be in as high in numbers as it is in Florida because we have a super large elderly population, but it is a wonderful source. Also divorce, right? Happens 50-something% of the time. And often there's a home that needs to be sold. So picking a niche of some sort that you can learn and take the time to learn now, that'll serve you in perpetuity. Because what I'm aware of is those niches don't go away when the marketplace gets great. I mean, they're still there. We're suggesting volume because what we do does not change. How much of it we do and how we do it is what changes based on market dynamics. So in 2020, 2021, whatever, you could make 7 contacts a day and make 100 grand. Yeah, now it probably needs to be 3 times that amount. So personally, as an agent, I would propose 20 to 30 per day, 5 to 6 days a week. That's 6 days, Saturdays. I did that religiously for my career. You add an extra 40-something days of prospecting, 50 days of prospecting, which is a whole month, right? And, you know, if you have a great appointment, you can go on it. If not, you just call it a day and do whatever you want. But doing that 6 days a week. And then if you wanted to really ramp up volume, you know, having people make calls on your behalf, whether those be VAs or telemarketers. So now you're making 100 contacts a day. So if you implement these things, you have a niche that you can go directly to that is a life event, right? You are getting people to raise their hand. You're making 20, 30 contacts a day, plus you got people calling. You are directly dealing with a shortage of inventory, and you'll still be able to get your unfair share in this environment.
Awesome. Now, is there a brutally honest piece of advice that you would give perhaps newer agents or just agents regarding prospecting now?
Yeah, I mean, it's just that, like, look, there's a reason that there's an 80% attrition rate. So in the first year of getting a license, 80% of the people who get a license are doing something else within a year. And there's a reason, because they don't understand what they're getting into, which is a direct, hardcore sales business that requires you to prospect. And the thing that I want everybody to really recognize is your job as a salesperson is to be in the presence of prospects. Period. It is not to do paperwork. It is not to, answer calls. It's to be in the presence of prospects. And truthfully, I don't care how you're in the presence of prospects as long as you're doing it. Right? So if for you prospecting is pumping out loads of content so you can be in front of people all the time, great. If it's banging on the phone and prospecting 6 days a week and making 20, 30 contacts a day, great. My suggestion, do both. So that way you're increasing the probability that you're going to be in the presence of prospects long enough. The other thing I would say is that anybody can do this job like a day a week. Some people can do it 2 days a week. There is very few people that can do it 5 to 6 days a week. If you can, and you can turn yourself into the type of person that can do that, if you know how to sell, you will be disproportionately rewarded for your efforts. Like, you can literally make millions of dollars a year selling real estate. You could sell as much as you want. So what I would suggest is that, you might be saying to yourself, like, hey, like, why me? Why is this happening right now? Here's a really good question. Instead of it happening to you, why is it happening for you? So you want to be a rock star salesperson? Great. I'm going to give you a tough environment. And it'll force you to get faster, quicker, stronger. Because what I didn't mention in that intro is in 2007, my mom had a brain bleed. And I shut down my business and moved marketplaces and started over from scratch. And then 2008 happened, which was an absolute collapse. Not what we're experiencing now. This is like a little blip. That was, financial institutions going out of business. That was 40% of everything on the market was foreclosures. And prices were going down 30% a year, right? So what I'm aware of is I would prefer that not have happened to my mom. At the same time, you know what that forced me to be? Faster, quicker, stronger from a mental perspective, better at prospecting, because I got thrown into an environment where everybody was running for the hills and telling me like, hey, this is like the worst time to be selling real estate, when in fact, I grew my business by 25% year over year. And it laid the foundation for, doing thousands of transactions moving forward.
So for agents that are maybe looking to transition from being buyer's agents to now solely focus on listings, what would be some of the first steps for them to start to take?
Yeah. So one is they have to really make a decision. So it means to kill off any other option, right? So they have to decide, this is what I'm going to do. So to give an example, once I made that decision, I didn't even own an e-key for like 14 years. I couldn't even show property even if I wanted to. It wasn't even an option. I didn't even think about it as a way of making money. The only thing I focused on was prospect, lead, follow, go on appointments, negotiate deals. The only way I personally earned income was through listing property and selling. So you have to make a decision, not like this, like, oh, I'm going to dabble with it because I kind of have to right now. It's like, no, this is like because it's going to require a lot. When you think about it, I mean, there's 20,000 agents in the multiple listing service, and there's only 100 in my multiple listing service. There's only 100 that do over 20 million in volume. That's it. So you have like 20,000 people competing for 100 jobs. So if that's what's true, it's like, okay, what would your schedule look like? Would you be a listing agent or work with buyers? What would your, kind of regiment be with how you take care of your body, and what would your regiment be with what you're reading and how many books you're reading? Like, if I was to look at your library, would I say like, hey, you're a serious student of sales? Or would I be like, hey, you're a serious student of the Kardashians? Like, what are you focusing your time and energy on? So the first one is make a decision. The second is you have to ramp up the learning curve, because the challenge is that with working with buyers, there's very little rejection. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to work with sellers, you're going to need to get a PhD in rejection. You're going to get rejected. Like, I remember standing in front of a room of people. I was giving a talk. I'm like, yeah, I talked to 7,000 people this year. I got 142 to say yes. And everybody looked at me like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, you're just not willing to hear no that many times. So you have to recognize that that's what's true, but you also have to ramp up the skill, because at first you're going to have to make at first I had to make 200 contacts to set one appointment. Mm-hmm. Where now I could be on the phone and make 12 contacts and set 2 appointments. So you have to ramp up the skill set, really practice. I would get into a role play group. We have one. I know other people have one, but I would get proximity to somebody who can get you connected, get you the scripts. And then like, you got to start be in the presence of prospects, however that is, whether that's knocking on doors, calling people, start making those contacts. I would record what you sound like, send it to somebody like a mentor or a teacher or somebody who can give you some feedback as far as what's going on and how you can improve. And then, if you do that, if you sincerely do that and you're making between 20, 30 contacts a day, you're going to set you don't have to be good. You just have to be there. Like you're going to set an appointment. Every squirrel gets a nut. You're going to bump into somebody and then you'll be off to the races. And
something that you mentioned a few minutes ago was you have role play and also the proximity to someone that has already done it or is doing it at a high level. So go ahead and tell us about your coaching or programs that you have to help agents in case anyone that's listening is interested in joining them.
Yeah, so a couple things. We have classes that are online in 23 countries and 8 languages that teach people what to say and how to say it. So I recognize a lot of people would want to role play with me. And I would say, well, I'm only one person. So how could I actually make myself available to more people? And that's where those courses came from. So whether it's for sale by owners, expires, I did 100 deals, 75 were expireds one year. Pre-qual, the actual listing presentation, handling objections, presenting offers. You get all 7 of those in a bundle. That's a course online that you can watch whenever you want, as frequently as you want. There's no limitations. We also have a role play group that guarantees a role play partner 5 days a week. All they have to do is just show up. We handle all the scheduling for them. If they don't show up and they don't give us 24-hour notice 3 times, we kick them out. And if they pay us and they don't show up and give us 24-hour notice, we still kick them out. We don't give them their money back because the strength of the group is based on the consistency of its members. And what I've done is I've recreated the same environment for myself, which is where I role play twice a day, 6 days a week. So we have one in the morning at 7:30, which is for setting appointments. And we have one in the afternoon at 11:30 just for the listing presentation. Because you can't get good at something you don't do all the time. You should not be practicing on potential listings because they're worth too much money, 10, 15, 20, 25,000 bucks, right? And then we have a group coaching call that I lead as well, which is for an hour, once a week via Zoom, where I hop on and add value and, share with people skills, mindset, systems, things of that nature to help them to be as successful as they possibly can.
Awesome. So is there a website where people can go or how can they find you?
Yeah, AaronNovello.com.
Okay. There you go. So Aaron, thank you so much for all of the information that you've dropped today. I know that a lot of the agents that are watching this will now be able to implement a lot of the tips and strategies that you mentioned. What would be the last tip that you would leave everyone watching just so that they can go out there and start doing?
Yeah. So I think really recognizing that this is like an enormous opportunity. So you might as well take full advantage of it.
There you go. Awesome. Well, Aaron, thank you once again. We're going to make sure to put all of your links in the description box below. So with that being said, thank you everyone for watching and we'll see you on the next one.
I want to do a little reel with you guys. We are going to say systems are sexy. Okay? So get cute. Get cute. Whatever you need to do. Systems are sexy. She has been in the real estate business for over 17 years. In her career, she has sold over 2,000 homes. The back that makes the front move. I want to introduce Carla Novello. Thank you. Yes, this is where I started. This is little baby Carla. This is the person you have to picture who walks into her first day of work with her then fiance, who is working in basically a little closet. Think dingy, no windows, map tacked onto the wall because there was no GPS or smartphones back then. So I come into my first day of work and Aaron is prospecting feverishly. If you know Aaron, you can picture this. And I go to him, okay, I'm ready to be trained. I want to know what to do. And he basically looked at me and said, I'm really busy, so you're just gonna have to figure it out. So what I had to do was go around the office and ask agents, what do you do? What is real estate? I didn't even know really what real estate was. I knew they sold houses, but what does that mean? What do you do? So that is how I started my basic systems. And if you don't have a system, you are the system. So fast forward in 5 years, we're doing 100+ deals a year. 4 years after that, we're doing 200 deals per year with a skeleton crew. And we've sold, like she said, more than 2,000 homes in our career.
Yeah!
The reason I tell you this is because I know that anyone can double their sales with the right systems. So today we're going to talk about the 3 S's of systems. Number 1, simplify. Simplify means make less mistakes. Anyone here besides me make a mistake that costs them money?
Yes.
Same. Sales. The purpose of systems is to increase your sales. Anyone besides me want to do more sales and make more money?
Yes. Money! Like Aaron always screams out, money!
Same.
We're missing him, aren't we?
I know. We are, but the ladies are taking over today.
Yes.
And the third is to scale, is to teach people how to do what you're doing so you can duplicate and so you can work out of real estate. Anyone besides me not want to sell real estate till they're 80?
Woohoo!
Same. So simplify. The first basic thing to do is to come up with workflows for each of your processes. So that means, what do you do before the appointment? What do you do after the appointment? What do you do when you take the listing? What do you do when it goes pending? What do you do when it closes? And what do you do after it closes? And I know that the P word is a bad word here, okay? Paper. We're not supposed to use paper, but if you need to put these down on paper so you can visualize it, do it. Because that way you can see where are the holes? What's not getting done? And also who is supposed to do each thing? Because eventually you're not going to want to do it all yourself. When I started, I was the transaction coordinator. I was the one who took the pictures. I was the one who did the CMAs. I was the one who put everything into MLS. And guess what? I got burnt out real quick. And once I had kids, it wasn't sustainable. So putting your workflow down on paper is step 1. And number 2 is the CRM. It took us so long to get a CRM, it's almost embarrassing. Because we thought it was a waste of time. We thought, oh, it's just a place where you put your contacts. Like, I had stuff in Drive, I had stuff in Gmail, I had stuff all over the place. But what the CRM allows you to do is to have everything in one place. And Gabriella's really gonna get into the nitty-gritty of it, but the CRM can have your documents, your contacts, all your email templates, your checklists, your scripts, literally everything in one place. And if you have a team, if you have staff, you can see what they're doing and not have to micromanage them, which is amazing. Complexity fails and simplicity scales. Keep it simple, especially if you're a newer agent. Don't try to do everything at once. We have been doing this for 17 years, and we would implement one thing per quarter. So don't get overwhelmed. I know it's a lot, but we didn't do it all at once. So just keep that in mind. Sales, the sexy part. Everybody wants to do more sales. The systems are not that, people don't usually think that the systems are sexy except for us.
We think they're really sexy, okay?
Because the only way you're gonna do more sales. The only way you're gonna do more sales is with better systems, okay? As a buyer's agent or a listing agent, your only job is plan, prospect, lead follow-up, go on appointments, negotiate deals. Anything else is not supposed to be your job. So I don't know if this was at Aaron's peak or just at some point in his career, he figured out his dollar per hour when he was prospecting. Has anybody else done this? Okay, so he figured out at some point, I don't know if this is the highest, but it was around $200 per hour when he prospected. So what that shows you is that anything less than that is a steal if you're delegating it to someone else. If you're gonna pay someone $10, $15, $20 an hour to do something, it's a steal if it's gonna let you do those things and make $200. And if you're not making $200, even if you're making $50, $60, it's a bargain. So that's important to note. Delegate, I wrote down a list of the things that I would delegate first.
Delegate it all, everything.
Everything that's not the plan. Okay, so number 1 is calls. Anybody have their cell phone in the MLS? Camila went like this.
Yeah.
We never had our personal cell phone in the MLS because that is just asking for trauma, for PTSD, okay? Most of the calls that you're getting from agents are, how old is the roof? When was the AC replaced? Like, those are calls that are just wasting your time. And I see nods back there.
What's the HOA payment?
What does it cover?
Exactly.
Show the instructions. They're there. Just read.
Most of it's already in MLS, okay? So it's very easy to delegate that task to a VA or an administrative assistant. I would say.
And when you take off your number, get ready for the complaints from the association.
Yeah.
Because I've gotten a bunch already.
That's fine.
So
it's not their business, it's your business.
No, for sure.
And at the end of the day, whatever works for you is the way you got to do
That's
it.
why I don't care. I'm like, keep on bringing the complaints.
Exactly.
I don't care. My number's not there for a reason.
Exactly. Number 2 is a showing service. If you're trying to go to all the showings or coordinate all the showings, you're just an extra person that is getting in the scheduling. If you're just scheduling a buyer's agent and their buyer, that's 2 people. But now if you're trying to put yourself in the mix, it's just creating complication and taking time from you. So the MLS offers a showing service that is very economical in my opinion. Anyone else use the showing service?
Showing time? You mean showing time?
Yeah, showing time. Yeah, some people don't. They actually take all the calls and schedule it themselves, or they say that they have to be there. So that is definitely a no-go. Number 3 is the photographer. I promise, I know you guys think you take amazing pictures. I promise the photographer takes way better pictures, okay? The photographer also does not want you to be there. When you're there, they're like, ah. And pro tip, you can actually form a relationship with your photographer and have them put the lockbox on for you. So what we did is we shipped the lockboxes directly to the photographer. They would come pick up the key at my house. They would go put the lockbox on themselves, take the pictures. I just saved money on a runner and time. There are many properties that Aaron and I never went to. We took the listing over the phone. We never saw the property in person. The photographer sent us the pictures. I could see what it had, wrote the description, sold it, done. Efficiency. You like that? Yes, it's possible. Number 4 is a transaction coordinator. This is per deal, like invaluable. They get paid when it closes. And we've had a transaction coordinator for 15 years. She's amazing. If you guys want her information, I will gladly give it to you. And she saved deals that we could not have saved. They know about title. They know about lending. They know about real estate. They, I promise, are better than you.
Tell the story about the cockfighting ring.
So we were selling this house in Hialeah, and needless to say, it was in Hialeah, and we were on vacation, and all of a sudden we get a call. It's like, okay, we're at closing, but like we're doing the walkthrough, and what are you going to do about this cockfighting ring in the backyard? And we're like, what? Yeah, there's a whole cockfighting ring in the back with roosters, pens, the whole shebang. And our transaction coordinator took it upon herself. She hired a company to go demolish it. She paid for it, and at closing got reimbursed while we were away. Like, that's the type of thing that is invaluable. Number 5, listing coordinator, putting the listings in MLS. Like, why are you doing this yourself? If every time you took a listing, you could just throw it behind you and everything would be taken care of, how many more listings would you be able to take? That's the mentality. It's like, my time is spent here on the plan. Everything else, I just want to throw it back. And that might not be possible if you're brand new, but with time, you do a little at a time. We delegated maybe one of these per year. Really, they coincided with the kids. Like, once I had my first kid, I delegated this one. Second kid, this one. Because you can't do it all. And you're not going to get to 200 deals if you're going to do it all. Number 6 is CMAs. And I know this is a touchy subject because agents think that they are like God's gift to CMAs, that the way that they do it is the only way it can be done. And I promise you that you can train someone to do a CMA just as good as you can, and that it's a lot simpler than you think, because you have to think of who you're presenting to. You're presenting to a seller. Sellers don't know price per square foot or this or that. They don't know any of that. You have to really dumb it down, for lack of a better word. So what we would do is we would just send them a few actives, a few pendings, a few closed in a PDF. Aaron would bring it on his iPad and he would show them with all the pictures so they could see and do his presentation. That was it. That's not hard to teach, guys. You look up the neighborhood, find a few actives, a few pendings, a few closed. Put it in a PDF. If you want an example, reach out to me and I will send it to you. Very simple. And it just takes so little time. Well, it takes so much time of your time. When you set a listing appointment and now you have to do the CMA, imagine if you could just give it to someone else. And last but not least is CRM, which is Gabriella's bread and butter. I'm going to introduce Gabriella because she's going to really get into the details. Gabriella, who is my sister, used to work for the Art Museum in Fort Lauderdale. And she was in charge of all of the artifacts, all of the art. And she was a database specialist. Because can you imagine all those little tiny pieces, like where they're from, what year they're from? That was her thing. So when she came on the team, she basically told me that my database was shit. And I believed her.
It was like what Aaron says, like, I'm telling you this with love, but your database is shit.
So she's the one who made it to what it is today. So let's give her a round of applause.
Yes! Okay, so the database can be something of a bit of strife for a lot of agents. Sometimes they're like, I'm so bad at tech, or I don't get it, or, you know, it's overwhelming. So what I like to say is the same tactic that Carla's saying, one new thing at a time. And that is how I implemented these things with Carla's database. And I also want to stress that it is a little bit of a culture shift. If you have a team that is using something else that they're really used to, sometimes people aren't very flexible. And they'll tell you, this is the calendar I use, and this is the calendar that I want to use for the rest of my life, even though it's not connected to an email or anything else. So it's a slow process.
She's talking about Aaron, by the way.
I am talking about Aaron. He's not here, so we can talk a little. So I can talk about the database for years. We can really go into it and have an entire session on it. But I just wanted to show you guys the top 5 implementations that really were game changers for our business. And we're just gonna jump right in. So the first one is the lead flow. And I made these really nice little videos for you. So we use Follow Up Boss as our CRM, but I say the best CRM is the CRM that you use. I don't work for Follow Up Boss, so they all work the same. This is the picture of the lead flow. So leads come in directly into Follow Up Boss. You can see James came in 2 days ago. They can be distributed to realtors on your team so that they each get the leads they need. And then the great thing about it is that they all get an action plan. An action plan right away. They get a text message. Received your inquiry. I'm so happy to chat with you. What's a good time, mornings or evenings? And then you're like, oh, somebody's contacted me right away, wow. And if they don't respond, they'll get an email drip. And I'll show you later, but Aaron loves to put his face on everything. So we implemented BombBomb videos into our campaign. People love them, they see your shining face, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So the lead flow is really great. Next are your smart lists. So at the top of Follow Up Boss, you have these little groups. So our database right now has 20,000 people in the database. How are you organizing these people? It is almost impossible unless you make your smart lists. And this dictates your workflow. So you see I've numbered them. 1, today's leads. When you wake up in the morning, this is your workflow. You grab your cup of coffee, you go to smart list number 1, you call today's leads. Then you go to smart list number 2, weekly leads. These are the leads that didn't pick up the phone, they didn't respond, they need a little bit of follow-up. So you go to number 2. Then you go to number 3 to your nurtures. And you're like, okay, let's look at my 30, 60, 90 days. What's going on here? I make smart lists for everything. All of you guys in this room will be in a smart list. Who came to my systems training? You'll all get a BombBomb video saying thank you for coming at the end. This is not possible unless I have you all organized with tags, with systems. So the smart lists work by filtering. You can filter by last communication, you can filter by tags, you can filter by stages. It is a creative process. You can think about a smart list of everybody that left me a 5-star review. Now I have them all in a group. I can invite them to events. I can send them my newsletter because I know they love me. And in 10 years, they're gonna want me to sell their house again. Okay, so operation checklists. This is what Carla was talking about, putting your workflows on paper. Sometimes agents have those workflows in their head. Sometimes they have them on a piece of paper. Sometimes they have them in Trello. So we didn't have them anywhere. We had them on a Word doc, and so we integrated them into Follow Up Boss per stage of the transaction. So now when the client goes active, you get a checklist on the right-hand side. It tells you what to do at each step of the transaction. So we have lists for when you make an appointment, when the client goes active, when the client goes pending, when they close. Now we can hire an assistant. We don't have to train them. They can just follow the checklist, and it says, client care coordinator does this. Number 1, order of operations. The checklist disappears once you check it off, and then you have at the bottom everything that's been completed. So when I say changing the culture, when Aaron comes to me and says, give me an update on so-and-so, what do I say? Look in Follow Up Boss. Everything is there. You can see notes, what needs to be done, what's been done, and what has been done. So this was a game changer for us. Now, less mistakes happen. When you are selling in high volume, how do you remember what you did for each client? Sometimes Aaron doesn't even remember their name. I'll be like, Susie called. Who's Susie? What? What are you talking about? Who's Susie? You're selling her house. He was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. But when you have 20 clients, how do you keep track of everything in the transaction? It is impossible without this checklist system. So this is really a game changer. Script automations. So sometimes we are new agents or we're in a new niche, okay? And we're a little nervous, we're prospecting, we're like, oh gosh, the script is not, memorized, I don't have it perfect. Now we can do script automation. So in the database, when you tag, this is how I set up triggered with a tag, you can tag them probate script, scripts for your client care coordinator, scripts for your TC, scripts for your assistant. Whatever script you need to pop up with a tag can pop up on the client's page while you're making calls. You can just read it. Read it off to them. You have everything at your feet. You can do this on your mobile app. If you're in the car, you're prospecting. We have someone on our team who's a full-time police officer. He is prospecting in his car all day long. He uses this script automation for almost everything. You can type in notes as you're talking to them in the background. This is really helpful, this background section, because you can put mother passed away, they have a dog, they have 2 cats. There's no way you can remember everyone and everything. The first client that I ever called when I joined the team, Aaron was like, call this lady, ask her for a review. I was like, oh great, she just closed. I called her up, I had FUB open, I had her phone number, I called her and I was like, hey Tammy, congratulations on your closing. She was like, well, my mother died. So it's bittersweet. And I was like, Aaron, you could have had a note somewhere. You could have told me her mother passed away. I would have called her with a different tone. I would have said something different. And so I had to switch gears and say, oh, Okay, so really, if you have a team, if you have people on your staff calling your clients, this is really important to write notes. What you said. Why? What's the update? What's their situation? Because it's really helpful.
Oh my gosh. You know what's funny? I've done hundreds of expired listing phone calls, I've never asked that question the way you just asked it.
Wow. Well, let me be the first to tell you, you definitely deserve better service than that.
Crushed it in high school, just picking up girls. Wait, hold on. You mean to tell me your boyfriend didn't call you and tell you this, that, and the other? He didn't say this. He didn't do that. Oh my gosh. Wow.
How many people besides me have ever been in the presence of somebody that you knew that they wanted something from you? They didn't come out and tell you, but they could feel it.
Oh, bro, it's just seeping out of their pores. I can smell it like cheap cologne.
And this way, whatever you decide to do, Brandy, whether you decide to stay put or you decide to move, you'll have
nobody's named Brandy in Fort Lauderdale. They're all Jim and like Beth.
No, I know there's
bro.
a Brandy here. That's why you get rewarded in public for what you spend countless hours doing in private. If you're serious about this, how many people do you role play with that you're actually intimidated to practice with them? If you learn how to sell, you will be disproportionately rewarded for your efforts.
Aaron wrote that song almost like Adele, right? That script was not something that somebody printed out to him and said, here, memorize this. That's personal development. That's delegation. That's understanding the most valuable activity that you should be doing. 91% of people on the planet will never understand it. 91% of people will always be overwhelmed and never pick up their phone. There's no way this dude is charging me $500 an hour to meet me at a Starbucks location.
We think that we are thinking beings that feel when we are actually feeling beings that think. And keep in mind, these people are being bombarded with, let's say, agents, and now let's say some investors that are reaching out that are looking for something. And if you can connect with people emotionally, I promise you they will stay on the phone longer. 100%, right? So if they're feeling desperate, they're feeling frustrated, they're feeling scared, the opposite of that is hope and certainty. Hope and certainty. So, hey, do you think I can actually get this done, Pace? Absolutely. It is really not a question to me of whether or not you could or couldn't, right? It's really just a question of me figuring out specifically what you're looking to accomplish and then coming up with a game plan to help you to get what you want in the time you want. I guess I'm curious. Notice that is hope and certainty immediately right out of the gate, right? Somebody is aggressive with you right out of the gate. The way that I like to describe this is, imagine if you've ever seen bull riding, okay? So when you're bull riding or you're watching bull riding, for the first 10 seconds, what does the bull do? Buck.
Yeah.
Almost uncontrollably. But then what happens after 10 or 15 seconds?
They calm down.
He stops. Right? And initially, when you are making this phone call, initially, they're going to buck. How'd you get my phone number? Who are you? Why are you calling me? Like that sort of thing. So my goal and objective is to have them to talk to me. I want you to erase in your mind initially, my goal and objective is to get a deal. No, my goal and objective is to discover if they have a need that I can service. Okay? And how am I going to find that out? If they speak to me. That's the only way I'm going to find it out. So if Pace is really aggressive with me and he's like, oh man, how'd you get my phone number? It's like, listen, what I'm aware of is I can tell by the tone in your voice that it wasn't your expectation this morning that you were going to get bombarded with phone calls. I will be sure to take it off my list. Initially, what are they thinking right away? Okay, we're done here. While I have you on the phone, Pace, I guess I'm curious. Your home's lovely. It's in a great geographic area. Great schools. I don't need to tell you that. If you don't mind me asking, when you had originally put it on the market, was there any particular reason you were even considering selling it? Notice my tonality. That's ridiculous. Why would you ever do that? Which is going to cause them to do what? Speak to me. Pace is going to be like, well, you know, we wanted to do this, this, and that. Okay. And listen, first, I appreciate your willingness to share that with me. The more you're willing to share, the better equipped I am to provide you with information that could be helpful or useful in some way. So I'm wondering, is that still something that's important to you, or have things changed forever? When I say have things changed forever, what am I doing? I'm slamming the door shut on that opportunity.
That's so good. Such a great line.
Either a definite yes or a definite no. They're either going to say, well, no, like not like forever. Okay, so it sounds like it's something that's still important to you. It's just that you're not specifically clear as to how come it didn't sell or what you need to change to ensure that it does. I guess I'm wondering, how did you happen to pick the agent that you hired to help?
Oh my gosh. You know, what's funny. I've done hundreds of expired listing phone calls. I've never asked that question the way you just asked it.
And what happens, Pace, when you do that, check this out. What am I insinuating is the reason it didn't sell? The agent. Did I come out and say that directly?
No.
No. My tonality infers it. So if you don't mind me asking, I mean, gosh, your home's lovely. I guess I'm a little bit confused. Did the previous agent give you any clear, specific reasons as to how come it didn't sell? And they'll be like, well, they blame the market, or they said interest rates are too high. Really? How interesting. I oftentimes notice, Pace, that when homes aren't selling like that, oftentimes what agents will do is they'll blame the market, they'll blame interest rates, things of that nature. I'm wondering, though, you strike me to be someone who has a lot of common sense. You seem to understand this process pretty well. What do you feel like they should have been doing? So you could do something simple, which is just get it sold and make the move to Kansas. Be quiet. Now, what are they going to complain about?
The agent and all the problems.
And all the reasons why they sucked and all the reasons why. And you're like, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Wait, so let's say they start to tell me, they're like, well, they didn't call me, they didn't give me updates. I will interrupt them. Robin, wait a minute, time out. You mean to tell me they weren't calling you every week with a specific update, letting you know how come it's not selling and what you need to change to ensure that it does? No. Wow, well, let me be the first to tell you, you definitely deserve better service than that.
What's interesting? I had a buddy that crushed it in high school, just picking up girls, and his lines sounded very similar to this.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. You mean to tell me your boyfriend didn't call you and tell you this, that, and the other? He didn't say this. He didn't do that. Oh my gosh. Wow. Guys, half of you guys have been doing this your whole life. In fact, you probably landed your wife this way.
That's right.
God, bro, this is money. Keep going. I don't want to interrupt. I'm just in the peanut gallery, just enjoying this.
Yeah, it's literally money. It's literally a license to print money if you can learn how to do it effectively and efficiently. So, yeah, and then let's say they're like, well, I felt like they should have done this, this, and this. Yeah, I agree with you, right? And what do you feel like they should have been doing? They're like, well, I feel like they should have been more aggressive and more proactive. Yeah, 100%. So let me ask it this way, because my job is to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. Time out. Most people are so overly attached to an outcome that they have commission breath or assignment breath, or, you know what I'm saying? It leaks out in your tonality, in your choice of words, in the rate of speech, like all of that, and it becomes repulsive. How many people besides me have ever been in the presence of somebody that you knew that they wanted something from you? They didn't come out and tell you, but they could feel it.
Oh, bro, it's just seeping out of their pores. I can smell it like cheap cologne.
All right. And what's so fascinating, I want everybody on this call to recognize something, okay? We all speak another language. We just don't talk about it. Communication is only 8% of the words that are coming out of my mouth. It's 50% like body language, 18% tonality, right? It's a small fraction. So when people come to me, they're like, hey, I want to learn what to say and how to say it. I'm like, I can teach you that, but there's this other language that we have to learn. And when I say to you, like, listen, my job's to help you, Pace. It's never to talk you into doing anything. Immediately, what am I demonstrating? I am completely unattached to this outcome. Whatever you decide to do is fine. Right? Versus what other people are doing, like, oh, please, 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 let's meet. Let's meet. Let's meet. Let's do a deal. Let's meet. Right? So you'll totally stand out by doing that. And so my job's to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. Let me ask it this way. If you had an offer that was very reasonable, very acceptable to you, in the next maybe 30, 60, 90 days that would allow you to still make this move to Texas happen, do you think you would still sell the home? Be quiet. You'd be like, well, yeah, I probably would. Great. Well, just by you saying that demonstrates that we should get together and discuss the options. That's neuro-linguistic programming. Just by you saying that demonstrates that we should get together and discuss the options. May I make a suggestion? Be quiet. When I ask, may I make a suggestion, what am I asking permission to do? Who can tell me? I'm asking permission to close. You be quiet, and it might take 20, 30 seconds, and it seems like a lifetime. You're just quiet, sitting there. And then you know what they'll say to you? I'm listening. Or they'll be like, go ahead, Pace. Or they'll be like, you can make a suggestion, but I don't know if I'll do it. Right? You just have to shut up long enough for them to say it. Now they're giving you permission to proceed. Right? They say, well, go ahead. Yeah, I mean, make a suggestion. Well, based on what you've been kind enough to share with me, I'm hearing a couple things very clearly. The first one is you still want to make the move to Texas happen. The second thing I'm hearing from you is really through no fault of your own, because you weren't getting great service. You are not specifically clear as to why it didn't sell and what changes we could make in terms of approach, perhaps creative financing that would allow you to accomplish your goals and objectives. So what I'd like to do is this, and I really wouldn't mind because I'm in your area all the time anyway. I'd love to have the opportunity just to pop by. Notice, how long does pop by sound like?
2 seconds.
2 seconds, bro. Just pop by, take a quick peek. Notice, quick peek. See what it has to offer in person. And what I can do is I can show you a couple things very clearly. Number one, how come it didn't sell? Number two, what we need to change in terms of a more proactive and aggressive approach, including creative financing, that can help you to accomplish your goals and objectives. I could show you a net sheet with the proceeds to be to you and your family you could take with you to Texas. And this way, whatever you decide to do, Brandy, whether you decide to stay put or you decide to move, you'll have
Nobody's named Brandy in Fort Lauderdale. They're all Jim and like Beth.
No,
Beth,
I know there's
bro.
a Brandy here.
About?
That's why.
Okay.
So, whatever you decide to do, you'll have all of the information that you need so you can make the decision that you feel is best for you and your family. Notice how many U's are in there. How many I's? 0.
You know what's funny? I have windows like this, but they're darker where you can't see anything on the inside, and people are like this.
And you can see what they're doing.